Sorry for the piercing noise that might appear in the video, because some freshly incarnated souls are having the time of their existence under my balcony, and who am I to tell them that they're not allowed to? Hi, and welcome to my multidimensional living room. To activate your multidimensionality, in case you was asleep for a second, please look around and find something that is red and something that is blue. And if you have something that is only red or only blue, then look at it and try to imagine something else that would stand next to it that would be either red or blue. And let me know what is it. Yesterday while I was cooking, I was getting a question in my head, and while I was trying to answer that question, I only scratched the surface of where that question actually leads. And it leads quite deep and far. You hear that? Horrible. I mean, beautiful. And later in the day, I heard somebody actually having exactly the same question in their head, answering it quite deeply and extensively, way much deeper and extensive than I went. I just scratched the surface. And then I thought, well, if that was something that I'm supposed to be talking in this video right now, then what's the point of tackling it if somebody already went to the root of it and explained it in way much more detail than I would be able to. But then as I thought about this, in exactly that moment, I was passing next to a building that in the ground floor they had a store where they were selling living rooms. Furniture, but the furniture was organized in a way that it was also kind of selling a vibe, not just pieces of furniture. And that shop only had 3 windows. Consequently, it had 3 different constellations of how could a living room be constructed out of these pieces of furniture. And I got attracted to it. It was appealing, and it was somewhat comforting to look into those living rooms, even if I didn't have an intention of buying a living room. But then I noticed that there were only 3. There was no space more than that. But still, although IKEA has 333 living rooms that they can offer to you and be like, there, choose, where do you fit, where do you vibe, where do you want to sleep? That shop owner didn't get stopped by the fact that there is IKEA already, so why bother renting a space and creating 3 living rooms? He still did it. He still created the whole space, paid rent for it, or bought the property and created furniture and put it there so that you can enjoy looking at it. So that encouraged me to still, although this topic is already deeply covered by somebody else, to still offer my Tetris piece into the conversation. The question that popped into my head was, do you eat what you want, or do you eat what you get? Answer it for yourself. Do you eat what you want, or do you eat what you have? The answer you give is directly correlated to how you were fed as a child, how your parents served food to you. If your parents, I'm roughly speaking and generalizing, but if your parents went above and beyond to satisfy every wish that you could possibly have, then you feel a little bit more at ease getting what you want out of your life. And if you had parents that didn't really have an opportunity to give you everything that you wanted, and instead you had to conform to what was there on the table, what was served to you, and you had to eat what was given to you. There was no choice of something else, and you might even be in this category of people who didn't even get to be encouraged to think about what else could you want, what else would you want, because you were told that you have to be grateful for what you have, and how dare you to think anything different because there are children in Africa that don't have even this, so you should be grateful, you should just take it. If you're in part of this dynamic, then you were kind of as a child trained to become a human that needs to settle for things that were given to you. And you either don't really even know what it is that you want, or even if you know what you want, it seems like it's out of reach. There's a direct correlation between how your mother provided for you that is playing out in terms of how the earth and the material realm is providing for you in terms of food, finances, opportunities, housing. And then there's also direct correlation between how your father provided for you, and that is how the world orchestrates itself, how the spirit orchestrates itself. Like, do you really get to have those opportunities? Do you get to recognize them? It's more the non-material movement of things and energies. If you're a part of the second category of people who had to eat what they were given, and now you're bearing the consequences of being in life where you do want something else, but it seems like that just doesn't happen for you. You're also at the point where you have a choice of whether you want to keep giving your life energy into this trajectory. In other words, stay loyal to your family conditioning or cultural conditioning or country conditioning or regional conditioning or conditioning of that time where you come from. Or do you want to make a choice and change the narrative of your life and do something that is more fulfilling for you? Allow yourself to know what it is that you want and allow yourself to have it. If you are on that point of realizing the connectivity between your current state and your past, then you also have a choice of going in another dimension of your existence. That brings me into another vision that I've had yesterday, which was a little bit challenging for me to condense into a few meaningful sentences for you, but I will do my best to put it, because it does contain a little bit of a heavy energy. I was seeing a vision of a transformer, a car that is car in one moment and then it becomes human-like robot in another moment, which was a symbol for us humans who went on a quest of figuring out who are we when we don't live through default settings that were given to us. Who are we when we are not mother, father, daughter? Who are we when we are not that profession that we were trained to embody? Who are we when we don't identify with the gender that we were born into? Who are we when we don't identify with the nationality that we were born into? Who are we when we don't speak and think in language that is our mother tongue? And similar. And that quest or that journey, that trip, that path, I mean, you know, it's love and light and go with the flow for one type of people, and then it's really like no joke to other. I dare to say it can be extremely challenging. And although it is extremely challenging, it is kind of woven into some sort of good, there is a positive outcome, at least as a guiding light, at least as a carrot on the stick. So you're going in between lines of empowerment, expansion, enlightenment, reaching your fullest potential, you name it. And while you inevitably might see it that no matter how challenging it is, or it was, or you know it will be, there is still some sort of something that guides you to go in it, that you believe it is worth it. Maybe it's even not there somewhere, but it's inside of you. You're still giving into it for this positivity of some sort of improvement or healing. Or some people go into this path with, you know, an outcome. They go through this in order to be able to be in a relationship, or they go through this in order to be able to reach the point of self-actualization, or they go through this in order to fill in the blank. And while it's all very carefully or skillfully or just beautifully wrapped into this paper of it's a present, it also comes down with the negative aspect of it, and it reflects the vulnerability that you might encounter as a result of this. Kind of like exactly the opposite, the polar opposite of getting empowered to being disempowered or being vulnerable. So what might happen along the way is that everything that you went through under the name of empowerment, such as getting rid of limiting beliefs and setting new behaviors for yourself, new habits, new rituals, you might be identifying yourself with new people, new communities, speaking new languages and so on. At the same time, while it connects you over there, it disconnects you from over here. So when you encounter somebody that, for example, comes from your area where you were born to, usually previously by default you would have some sort of like seamless, God-given resonance with those people. You would know what to expect of them and they would know what to expect of you, and consequently there would be some sort of natural flow to the connection. But now that flow might be disrupted. And when you look into why this flow is disrupted and why these connections are not as resonant as they used to be, you might see that it's because you changed. You think differently, you behave differently, you make different choices and different decisions for yourself, and now you're not as predictable as you used to be. And you don't fill into the same wagons of your being that were used to carry the substance of your being that was used to fulfill somebody's needs and expectations of you. And now there's a little bit of a gap. And that comes with a little bit of heavy energy. And by heavy energy, I mean there might be some heartache and disappointment and just seeing the mismatch. Where people who didn't go through the same process that you did, they didn't go through the process of dismantling themselves so that they could figure out what makes them them and what is something that can be shifted and turned and tweaked into something else. They don't know, they don't understand why would you make any different decision? Why would you think differently? Why would you do something different than what they were God-given to them by their culture or surroundings that they were born into? And then there might be some sort of gap. A very simple example of it, which illustrates how you don't really necessarily need to, go in a cave and meditate there for 12 years and then come back and realize that you can't live on the planet anymore. You can simply just go live in another country for a year. Go do Erasmus exchange or something and then come back and try to hang out with people that you used to hang out with. It's not as it was before. Simply because these people didn't go somewhere. They still have some idea of how life works and what life is and what life should be. And now you come from another standpoint and you see that what they think is the truth. You see that that's only one potential of the truth, but it's not the only truth. Then if you tell them that, they might come to you as, what do you think you know? And this discomfort might happen and manifest on many different levels. They might not like who you become, they don't like what you do, they don't like how it works for you and how it works for them. And for us humans on the internet, it's very easy to say, if somebody doesn't like who you become, that's their problem. That's something that they have to deal with. You do you. It's easy to say that. But the pain and discomfort of losing connection to the places and people and communities and cultures where you previously had a sense of belonging is real, and it needs to be acknowledged. And it's not just going to go away simply because you decide to focus on something else. It is there. Somebody's going to feel it. Either you're going to feel it, or something or somebody that you are kind of quote unquote leave behind is going to feel it. To me, that was something that was really popping up over the last days, and I was really feeling into it. Once when you go through this process of dismantling yourself to figure out who are you when you are not fill in the blank, and then you go through the process of rearranging yourself back into who do you think you are. You can clearly see what is yours and what isn't yours. The border between what is you and what isn't you, although it might completely dissolve and you can see that the whole world is you, you is me and I am you, I'm just a particle of your subconscious talking to you. You wouldn't be here unless there is some sort of connectivity in between you and me. You wouldn't listen to me, you wouldn't understand me at all if a part of you wouldn't be completely in resonance with what I'm talking to you right now. But also at the same time, while there might be full disillusion of boundaries and borders and where do I stop and you begin, and entering of this ever-flowing, everlasting unity of it all, oneness of everything, at the same time you can still recognize what is your energy that you embody and that you exemplify through your existence and through your example of being, and what is somebody else's. Like, it really becomes clear what is what. And it leads me to the next point, and that is the next vision that I was having is a black filter. It was like a black tube, which represents something that happened as a catalyst for you. It might have been an event, it might have been a person, it might have been a breakup, it might have been something that you entered through this. You think that you're going somewhere, it was going well, and then you went through that filter and you exited this filter not the same like you've been before, but in a drastic, kind of heavy, unpleasant, disruptive way. So speaking in colors, I see purple color entering this black filter, and in this filter there was a process of removing red particles from blue particles, and you leave the filter as blue particle, seeing that the red remained in the filter and you're not purple anymore. An example of this would be, let's say previously you've been in enmeshed relationships, and I'm saying enmeshed because it was very hard to say who is who in a relationship. You thought it was all love. Another freshly incarnated soul entered the building. So let's say you previously were in enmeshed relationships and you thought it was love. It was very difficult to see who is you and who is this other person. You thought you were both one. But then you went through this black filter and you broke up. And after you left the filter, you realized that what you thought was your problem was actually their problem that was projected onto you. And what you thought was love was actually your both trauma response. Or there might be a situation where somebody is financially dependent on you and their whole survival depends on you pouring your finances into them. If you want to break this relationship and find some other ways of living for yourself, this person's survival system might completely kick in and their nervous system might be completely inflamed, and they're going to tell you that they love you and they mean it, and they really think that they do, because they do feel the intensity of their whole body being inflamed. But you, because you already went through this type of scenarios enough times and through these black filters, you can clearly see that that isn't love. Inflamed nervous system isn't love. Or another example is that some people have a really strict boundaries within themselves, first and foremost, between who they are while they're working and who they are while they're not working. So when they go to work, they do the work. And when the work time is over, they start living. And they have no problem whatsoever to discerning who are they when they perform the task that they are paid for and who they are outside of their working environment. It is very, very clear. There is no need to even talk about it. Why should it or could it be any different? But for some of us, it's very different, because no matter what type of a job are we doing, do we do something that we really sense our sense of purpose being activated, or do we do something that we do simply for the sake of paying the bills? The experience of both jobs or anything in between is that we are still the ones having that experience and living through it, right? And especially artists, and again, some artists, they have a very clear idea of who they are and what they're doing, and there is no mix in between. But some of us pour ourselves into absolutely everything, and then it is really hard to say what is an artwork and what is you. What is you as a being and having your own life, and what is you doing a performance. The lines are very blurred, non-existent sometimes even. But this black catalyst, this black filter, this tube that kind of served as a catalyst, consequently, moved you into another life trajectory, or opened up a new possibility, or changed you in one way, shape, or form. But another byproduct of going through this filter is that you, first and foremost, for yourself, you don't need to explain yourself to anybody else, but you know for yourself internally, who is it that you are and what is it that you are doing. Well, previously, the enmeshment of these two things might have brought you into some sort of, I'm not going to say trouble, but there were some consequences of it. But now you can clearly see that who you are and what you're doing, it's still the same thing. It's still two hands holding themselves together and being together and flowing energy from one to another. And they're also coming from the same body, but they also have ability to detach from one another, where one hand can go in this direction and another hand can go in this direction and do something else here. They're not dependent on being glued together. So how that also translates into an example is that previously you might have been, if I'm talking to you as an artist, but you take it as it resonates, you might have been afraid of showing your artwork to the world because you were afraid what will people say about it. And you were afraid that if somebody judges the artwork, that it's going to directly affect you. And because there was a part of you that was enmeshed with the artwork. While now, as a result of going through this black filter experience, this catalytic experience, you might have a very clear distinction, first and foremost, inside of yourself, that you as an artist, you have a task of creating artworks, and artworks have autonomy of their own. You remain in your own autonomy, but artwork is kind of like slightly detached from you. Like, yes, you created it, but you also give it space and time to breathe and to live the life of their own. It's kind of also like some parents create children and then they're so enmeshed with them. They don't let them live. They don't let them go out in the world and explore and create life for themselves. While some create another human that has total autonomy to create their life however the fuck they want it. And they have freedom. And their parents are like, you do you, I'll do me. And it creates a little bit more space for life to flow. That's all for today. I feel that I am transmitting Tetris pieces that are black today, like these ones too. Camera stop responding. Why am I always saying camera stop responding? Camera stop recording before I was ready to leave. I just wanted to say thank you for being here, thank you for subscribing, thank you for liking, thank you for checking the links, and most importantly, thank you for being you. Yeah, this is how I should be doing this video sometimes. Okay, I'm gonna do the closing session like this. And once again, thank you for being here, and ciao.